Hello, I'm Lucas, this is Bit of Lit, and I want to talk about East of Eden for maybe Midrash, and I'm going to do this sort of as a analysis kind of thing. I'm not gonna give out the plotline too much, or go by bit, because that'll just take way too long. But I'll just point out some things. I think, it's a pretty easy text to read. I think it dives deep into some things, but, good and evil and all that, sins of the father passing down and, things like that. But, I just want to talk about it quickly, hopefully get it done in 10 minutes. This is for maybe Midrash, which is an event for the month of May to read literature in conversation with religion. And considering it's been a couple years since I've read East of Eden, and when I read it, it was my favorite book that I'd ever read. I figured this was the perfect time to reread it, because it thematically has a lot to do with stories from the Bible, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and maybe some others that I'm forgetting, but those two are definitely at the forefront, and things that we will see in part 1, which is what I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about part 2, 3, and 4 in their own videos. And so in part 1, just to give a quick rundown, we've got the Salinas Valley for a couple pages, and the beauty of it, and the things you'll see, the people you'll see, the families you'll see, what's there, and what it's like. And we, talking about wet seasons, dry seasons, the beginning of the day, the end of the day, poor families, rich families, and in a way, good and evil, because we've got all these dichotomies, and especially because there are these two mountains, the Gablean Mountains and the Santa Lucian Mountains. The Gablean Mountains are to the east, and they bring the narrator a sense of comfort, and to the west are the Santa Lucian Mountains, which sort of bring an unease to the narrator. And I think that will translate to good and evil in a lot of ways, because we've also got the Trasks and the Hamiltons, and the Hamiltons are these Irish immigrants who are sort of down on the luck, but they're quite happy with each other and how hard they work and getting by and all that stuff. And we've got the Trasks, who are headed by a fraudulent man named Cyrus, who served in the Civil War. And he has 2 kids with 2 different women, Adam and Charles, and they have a tenuous relationship because the father, Cyrus, treats them differently. He treats Adam a lot tougher because Adam is a little bit softer, and he wants him to join the army because he touts the greatness of being there, and says it's like being part of a company of angels. Excuse me, my nose has been ticklish for a while, probably from allergies or something. And meanwhile, Charles, he doesn't give nearly as much attention. He kind of lets him do his own thing. And this sort of comes to a head with a certain conversation that we see with Cyrus telling Adam, and this is why I want you to join the army, because I love you, and this is why I'm tough on you. And Charles sees this, and he starts picking on Adam and says, you remember his birthday? I got him a wonderful knife, and you got him a pup, and I never see that knife, and I always see him playing with the pup, and he loves you, and he doesn't love me, and I love him, and you don't seem to care about him. And in a similar fashion, Adam feels like he's unloved because he's getting all the harsh treatment, and Charles is, getting. And in a similar way, Adam feels unloved because Charles gets by with a lot of things. He doesn't have to get punished as much, and, his treatment by his father is a lot different. He doesn't really like his father because he's punished so much, and they both feel betrayed in different ways. And anyway, Charles beats Adam up, and he tries to kill him, which is sort of in reference to Cain and Abel, where the father, our father, God, sort of arbitrarily chooses one gift over the other in preference, and Cain Slains. Is that the right word? Slew? Abel. And yeah. So they have a constantly tenuous relationship. And it's interesting that Adam is made to go into the army, and it's sort of like joining a company of angels because Cyrus did serve in the Civil War. He wasn't there for very long. He got injured, lost half his leg, and while he was recovering, he contracted gonorrhea from a prostitute, came back, spread that to his wife, who killed herself because of that by drowning. And that's why he got married to Alice, who gave birth to Charles. And when he met Alice during the relationship, he would tell stories about his time in the military, and the more he told, the bigger the story grew, the bigger the lie, the more they believed, that kind of thing. And he started gaining status and wealth and power and connections from his exploits in being a fraudulent man and creating this idea of him that people can believe in. Anyway, Adam joins the military, and near the end of his first contract, I guess, he meets up with his father, Cyrus, who tells him that he can help him out. He's got a lot of connections. Let me use a little of my sway, and we'll make this nepotism thing work for you, and you can come under my wing and learn from the best and learn everything you need to know. And Adam decides, even though I don't like the army, which he made me join so that I can fight for the army, I'm gonna stay with these people. And his father Cyrus can't stand that. He even says something to the effect of, I can make men and I can break them, and I can pick senators like apples and all this kind of thing. So in a way, we've got these references to Cyrus being a god type figure with the Cain and Abel thing before, and also this there's another quote a little bit before saying, like, enlisted men, I can't remember the exact quote, but enlisted men try not to think of the high gods in Washington, and Cyrus lives in Washington. So we've got another reference there in terms of senators that he's in connection with, and Cyrus and himself being a god figure who sends these angels, perhaps fallen angels in a way, if it's true that he can pick and choose senators like apples, which is reminiscent of the fall of man, right? Satan being a fallen angel. And if we've got this dichotomy of good and evil, and they're all coming together in Cyrus. The image of him is very good, right? He's a leader and he's a powerful guy, but the reality of him is this sort of evil underlying depth to him that shows the whole landscape of humanity in perception versus reality there. And what are these angels, perhaps fallen angels, doing? They are kicking natives out of their land, out of their own Eden, which is what, Satan got to do to Adam and Eve. He got them to get themselves kicked out by disobeying God. Anyway, after his second term, he says, you're gonna rot there in your company, and Adam is okay with that. He does rot, and he sort of becomes a vagrant, and he goes to jail, and he eventually makes his way back home and lives with his brother. And we've got this idea of original sin and sins of the father being passed down, because then around that time Cyrus dies, and he has left a vast fortune, and that fortune is going to sort of, it's going to be the original sin passing down to his children, even though they're already sinful in their own ways. Adam, not quite so much, but Charles definitely. He's sort of more immoral, trying to kill his brother, which we have a line saying something about killing is the greatest sin, which is what the soldiers were doing. Adam was not doing it. He was intentionally misfiring and stuff like that against the natives, and bucking against the system and trying to make sure that he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, even though he was still getting rewarded and advancing in his career, becoming a corporal by the end of his first term. So anyway, they have opposing ideas on this wealth coming in that will represent sin being passed down, because Charles, as much as he loved his father and still kind of felt betrayed by him, he doesn't trust where it came from, and he's afraid he's going to have to give it back because he thinks it's been stolen, and it just came from lies and lies and lies. Adam, who doesn't care about his father, revered him but didn't love him, totally trusts everything that his father said, doesn't really care. And we're going to have that idea of, the narrator, brings it up, maybe loving someone casts doubt in your mind, and not loving someone means you can trust them. Enter Cathy, who is an evil, pure evil woman. She is a sociopath, as far as I can tell. She learns of the powers of sex over men very early. She gets some boys in trouble when she's 10 who give her some nickels and they can have some fun. We'll leave it at that. She gets her Latin teacher, or just one of her teachers, to kill himself because she rejects him. And she smiles about it and makes up stories about why he could have possibly done it, that people totally believe. And she gets all kinds of gifts and treats from men in her community, and everyone gives her all kinds of attention, and she's never known anything else other than all men and women, just kind of giving her attention and wanting to help her, wanting to be around her. So she uses them and manipulates them. I do wonder what the story would be like if we got more of her perspective. We will see that she is actually evil. I would like to see how she would defend some of the actions that we hear about. But she tries to run away. When she says, I don't want to be in school anymore, she gets taken back home and beaten and gives some crocodile tears as to how she's going, to get her father to stop hurting her. Though I don't think she actually minds the pain. She's just manipulating him, seeing if she can do it. And, she can, so she does it. And then, she starts behaving really well and treating her father really well, and her mother and everything, and learning the tricks of the trade at the tannery and about the safe and everything else. And then she locks her parents inside, burns the house down, goes to the safe at the tannery, steals the money, and leaves for another city. Whoa. So, yeah, I would like to see her perspective on that. Maybe she gives it in part 2, 3, or 4. I can't really remember, but we'll find out. Anyway, then she goes to another town. She becomes a prostitute for Mr. Edwards, who is obsessed with her, and she toys with him. Man, does she toy with him, treating him poorly at times and then treating him really well to make up for that, just to keep him on edge constantly. One time they have a drink, and she doesn't want to, but he keeps egging her on, and she sees right through, because he has some doubts about her, because she's very mysterious, and she, is changing the locks and selling all her gifts and doing all kinds of things. And she says some very nasty things, and she sees right through him, he sees right through her. And then the next time they meet up with each other, he says, I'm taking you to go to work. Oh, I don't want to go to work. Well, you're going to work for me anyway. And then he tries to kill her, and she manages to survive and makes her way to the Trask household, where Charles and Adam have sort of reconciled a little bit after Adam tells Charles about his time in jail. And then they see Cathy, who tries to say that she's lost her memory, writes it down because her jaw is broken. They get a doctor to help treat her. And my nose is going crazy, I apologize for that. But they get a doctor to help treat her. Charles wants her out as soon as possible, but Adam is just totally enamored, has fallen in love with her, proposes to her, and trusts her completely, but Charles does not. Anyway, Adam proposes to her, like I said, and Cathy doesn't really want this, but she needs refuge and she needs money, and so she's willing to manipulate him, and she doesn't want to get kicked out just yet, so she goes along with the flow. Now, listen to this real quickly. We've had some ideas of sin, original sin, and sins of the father passing down with the money. With that money, Adam is going to go to California because he's been very restless at the farm. And he wants to get out. And now he has a perfect opportunity, right? He's got a wife. He has his own Eve in Cathy, who is pure evil, which makes me think, is Steinbeck trying to say women are pure evil? Or Eve is pure evil, and therefore women? The rest of the women in the story are not evil, they just don't have a lot of character to them, and I don't really think it's a bad thing that Cathy is so sociopathic and evil, but we don't really get her perspective too much, at least not right now. We will a little bit more down the line, but yeah, Steinbeck and women, not great. I don't really think Cathy is so much the problem. Okay, maybe she is a sociopath, and, even if we got her side, we would think this woman is pure evil and manipulative and just awful. But the other women, we get, nice traits about them, and then they're kind of not there, or they kill themselves, or they don't even get a name, or they're barely around, and we just follow the men. So, it's kind of like, anyway. Cathy does not want to go to California, to the Salinas Valley, where the Hamiltons are. Not that they know each other yet, but that's where they're going to go. Cathy doesn't want to go there, but Adam does. And, Charles is kind of upset about all this, but whatever, I guess. You're going to do what you're going to do, and you shouldn't. You can't trust her. Cathy keeps manipulating him, keeps manipulating Adam, trying to convince him we're not going to go to your own Eden with me and be this Adam and Eve situation, where we've got all this sin coming in and just evil and ugly things going in. So anyway, they end up having dinner because they're not going to eat with Charles. And wouldn't you know it, the sleeping medicine that Cathy needs happens to be in the drink that Adam has. And he passes out. And Cathy, when Adam is fully asleep, goes to Charles's bedroom, and they sleep together, which shows just this story, this family is just brutally ugly, and we're going to see the after effects of that. Even though he doesn't trust her, he doesn't love her, and he doesn't trust her, he's still immoral enough to sleep with the wife of his brother, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that in part 2. So, yeah. Let's try to make this shorter next time. I don't think we're going to have to talk as much about some of the themes, which is point out where is it going, and it won't be 20 minutes long again. But yeah, thank you. Goodbye.